What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Sjogren, here with my co-host,
Emanuele, Pani.
We're part of a group of specialized real estate investors you've probably never heard of.
We didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, and we don't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing.
In fact, many of us don't even own the properties that fund our freedom. If you ask the money experts out there, they'd say what we do is impossible, yet it's happening every single day.
It's happening through a new niche called short-term rentals.
We are Short-Term Rental Nation, and these are our secrets. All right, STR Nation, we are back, and we have a very special guest today. We have Mr. David DJ Downs here with us. He's been a friend of ours for better part of a decade at this point, and I'm excited to catch up, man. I haven't caught up with you in a long time. I know you and E have been catching up, but I've been following you and seeing all your cool real estate endeavors and fitness journey and all sorts of cool stuff. And I think it'll add a lot of color to the listeners because, you know, when we met back in the day, we were all kind of in a similar spot, and it's just been really cool to see each of us go in our directions and build our portfolios and different entrepreneurship endeavors. So first off, welcome to the show, man. Appreciate you being on here.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a while. Just remembering, we met at M1, right?
Yeah.
The networking group M1. Wow, that was so long.
It was like 10 years, man. I think it was 2014.
Yeah.
It's been a minute, but I would love for you to kind of share, even going back beyond that, if you feel it's appropriate, of like, I'd love to hear your journey of how you got into real estate and where you're at now. Kind of your whole origin story, man, because it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, no, I'd love to tell my story. And I appreciate it. Thank you. I've been, wanting to get on here with you guys for a while. Just so that everybody knows, so if you hear anybody call me DJ, that means that they've known me for a long time. So that's kind of a nickname that I had growing up. Everybody calls me David now. And even since then, I don't think you knew this, is I've actually changed my last name to Valley. So my name is David Valley. So if anybody's following that wants to follow me in my journey, just a progressive way, I took on my partner's name, and we have a small little girl now. So we have like a family name, but we can get into that later. But yeah, man, I'd love to tell you my story. I think a lot of people can resonate with it, and then they can take a lot away from it because, I do come from a long lineage of like criminals, drug dealers, people who have been in and out of prison. Like I grew up, fairly poor, right? Like my real father was a naval officer, and, he was always out in the Navy, and my mom ended up separating from him when I was very young. I had a very young mother, 20 years old. I ended up growing up in Texas, where I was kind of raised by my grandparents, and I bounced around the country pretty much my whole life. And that's an interesting thing as well, because now how I live my life is by design geographically free. Like I have landing pads kind of all over the country. I live part of the time in Puerto Rico. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got a condo out in the Bay Area. And I think it stems from my childhood being moved around so much. I got very comfortable with just being free in that sense. It had a negative stigma to it when I was younger because we didn't have the money and we had to move around all the place. But now that I'm actually financially free, I love it. I'm a minimalist by design. I can pick up and go anywhere. And to be able to, segue into that that geographical freedom was financial freedom. And real estate was a vehicle for me to reach financial freedom, right? So kind of how I got into real estate, long story short, first one in my family to graduate high school, first one in my family to graduate college. I built, acquired, and sold my first 3 companies by the age of 26. My 20s, I was really big into the health and fitness space. We started multiple gyms, fitness apps, technology, supplement companies, apparel companies. Just really had that entrepreneurial spirit kind of pretty much my whole life. It wasn't until probably my late 20s to early 30s that all of these businesses, even though I sold a couple of them and made a little bit of money on it, that I was not going to become financially free or build generational wealth in that space at the time. So I went into the corporate world where I became one of the youngest business development officers for a Fortune 500 company. It's a large title insurance company. I started off in the residential space and then moved into the commercial sector space. So it was a beautiful thing because I actually got paid to learn about real estate. So my job as a business development officer, sales guy, and an insurance salesman, to really call it what it is, was to go out there and network and meet people, business development. So I would go in, I would say, hey, Emanuele, you are a real estate agent, right? What can I do to provide value to you? You're like, hey, I'd love to meet more investors, or I'd love to meet more people like Mike, or I'd love to meet more lenders. So I would go out, meet these people, vet them, bring them to you guys, and you guys would actually get together and do business. A lot of the times people didn't even understand how I got paid. They're like, oh my God, I'm making so much money and you provided so much value to me. What can I do? Can I cut you in the deal? Do you get a fee? I'm like, no, I want to handle all of your title insurance. So for those of you out there listening that do real estate and understand title insurance, nobody really understands what title insurance is. You understand a little bit of it, but it's just one of those things that you have to have. It's on your closing statement. So if you happen to have it regardless, why not use me? So I provided enough value. But what I did was I figured out how to really grow my book of business by understanding real estate, how to find deals, how to fund deals, how to underwrite deals. So I started bringing deals to investors, especially when I got into the commercial space, of deals that are already ready to go. I've already contacted the brokers. I've already found the deal. I already underwrote the deal. I've already lined up the lender, and I gave it to my clients as packages like, hey, here's a deal in your buy box. And they're like, oh my God. It wasn't until I really started to understand how much money that the investor was making versus how much money that I was making that I was like, all right, I think I'm on the wrong side. I need to start to understand more about how I move from the W-2 mentality to more of the K-1 mentality. How am I going to make that transition? So I was doing all of the things, right? Like I bought the condo, lived in the condo. This is before, this was before I made the jump over to the sector of real estate 100%. Rented out the condo, bought the single family home, right? Rented out the single family home, bought the loft, ended up doing my first deal, which was the 7-unit apartment. So, I'm working the corporate job, making all the money, trying to invest in the real estate, bought my first 7-unit from listening to Bigger Pockets podcasts, learning how to do a BRRRR, right? So I bought my first 7-unit. Up until the 7-unit, I kind of dabbled in some other things. I flipped a couple homes. I started one Airbnb, which was a nightmare. We can completely get back to that because I know a lot of you guys are the Airbnb guys, but did an Airbnb. It wasn't until I understood that I wanted to work on real estate and not in real estate. And like for those of you listening, what's the difference between the two, right? Well, if you're a real estate agent, a house flipper, if you are doing short-term rentals where you're doing the arbitrage where you don't own the real estate, it's a job, right? Anytime that you stop doing that, you're going to stop receiving income. So I wanted passive long-term income. So I wanted to work on real estate. So I got my first 7-unit, completed a BRRRR on it. And I'm like, wow, okay, I'm understanding how this game works, right? We did the refinance, got our money back out. I could redeploy the funds. I was in California at the time. Real estate's very expensive, still very expensive. So I was like, okay, I've got to go out of state. If I'm going to grow my portfolio, I've got to go out of state. So that's when I looked at my stuff in California, condo, single family, 7 units, sell it all, 1031 it into 32 units out of state in Alabama, right? So that's kind of like how my real estate journey, as well, working my corporate job at the same time. So I'm working 40, 50 hours in my corporate job, and I'm doing all of this after hours, right? So it's 2 full-time jobs. When I did the 32 unit out in Alabama, something happened after I finished that 32 unit. So 32 unit that I bought, we can dive deep into that deal as well. That deal made me $1 million. I made $1 million on a 32 unit BRRRR out in Alabama. Up until the beginning of that unit, this is kind of, I think, where I kind of met Mike and E and M1. Like I did zero self-development. I just worked all the steps that I thought I needed to work until I was about 32, 33 years old. I started to make a lot of money. I started to see a lot more money in my bank account. I thought that once I started to make the money, all of the issues and the problems and the feelings and all the stuff would go away and I would be happy and life would be great, right? Nothing changed. All of the feelings were still there. All of like my life didn't become a great movie just because I had a lot of money. So I was like, okay, something's missing here. The money didn't fulfill what I thought it was going to fulfill. So I started to do self-development. That's where I met great people like Mike and Emanuele through M1. right? I started to work on all of the aspects of my life, myself. I've always kind of been physically fit because I come from that background and I grew up being a fat kid. So I just did not ever want to be fat. It was very, very hard on me when I was younger. But I didn't understand that I had to put time into my relationships. I had to put time into my spirituality. I had to put time into all of the things that wasn't just wealth. So I know I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but it does really play into the fact of how self-development is what made me successful today in all areas of my life, especially wealth building in my career. But that 32 unit is kind of what the light bulb kind of went off for me. I was like, wow, like I just made $1 million in 12 months by doing a successful burst strategy on a 32 unit. I still have that 32 unit today. It's cash flowing like crazy. I got amazing debt on it. That's when we experienced something on a global level called the COVID pandemic. I don't know if you guys remember COVID, but it was a pretty interesting time, right, guys? So for me, I always look at things the glass half full, right? I actually saw an opportunity when COVID hit. I approached my W-2 boss for my corporate company and I said, hey, I'm a top producer. I know you're not going to let me go, but what if we do this? What if you fire me and bring me on as an independent contractor so I don't have a license? I'll keep my book of business with you. We can negotiate a percentage on it, but I don't want a salary anymore. I don't want benefits, 401k. I don't want any of that, right? Because I'm going to go full time into real estate. So I didn't think it was going to be a possibility, but we ran it up the flagpole and we actually got it approved. So I fired myself during COVID so I could go into real estate full time. And then simultaneously, the universe gives you, again, law of attraction, law of action, all the universal laws that you don't know and you need to study them because it's legit. So by attracting this, there was a lot of opportunities that came my way. I got a phone call during this transition asking me if I knew anything about Puerto Rico. Well, I'm geographically done with probably a lot of other stuff as well. I didn't even know what Puerto Rico was. I had to Google Puerto Rico. Oh, wow, it's in the Caribbean. Oh, wow, it's US territory. It's so awesome. There are tax benefits that you get out of Puerto Rico. It was Act 2022, but now it's Act 60. That if you move your US-based company to Puerto Rico and it actually has services that you give to the United States, you can actually go without paying any corporate tax or any income tax, and you only have to pay 4% tax to Puerto Rico, right? So I decided to create a consulting company for my title book of business, giving that to my current or my former corporate employer, and I moved to Puerto Rico. So I moved to quit my job, moved to Puerto Rico, and started to build my real estate portfolio. I'm always going to bring it back to this too. The beautiful thing about masterminding and networking is I, at this time, now graduated from M1 to GoBundance. GoBundance is a similar networking group for those of people that don't know what GoBundance is, but you have to have a certain net worth to be let into the networking, right? And they do that for a myriad of reasons, but they want to make sure that the conversations that are being had are appropriate for the network of the people that are there. So when I got into GoBundance, a lot of the people that was in my pod, which is a small group that meets every week, but also people that are meeting were like, as I told my story to them, they're like, wow, like you're doing really well with this apartment burst strategy. And I'm either a doctor or a financial advisor or whatever. I would love to invest with you. Well, at the time, I didn't think anything of partnering with people. It was just my own money, my own capital, my own work. So that's when I was like, okay, well, shoot, if I could partner up and joint venture with a couple guys that I really like, and we kind of throw all of our money together, maybe we could do 2 or 3 of these at a time. So we kind of just hit the ground running. And you fast forward 18 months, I built a portfolio of over 1,000 doors. We had about $100 million of assets under management, about $5 million of capital that we were revolving, mine and my business partners. And we just poured gasoline on fire and went out there and bought probably about 20 different projects in 18 months.
Damn, dude.
So yeah,
Yeah, like you don't know, but he's been busy. Like he's been busy, and those weren't like little lipstick projects. Like those were like projects. So talk about that, DJ, because I know like the kind of projects you were buying, and they were not like, oh, it's just carpet and paint. They're like, no, like dude, there's half of this building is missing. Like you know what I mean? Like distress. Yeah, like distress is an understatement. they're on their last leg. They're like almost like condemned buildings. So
Yeah,
walk us
no,
through that.
yeah, definitely will. So up until this point, they've been just kind of like, they call it the lipstick on the pig or just the slow reposition, right? Where it was carpet, flooring, LVP, cabinets, paint, a little bit of exterior work. And that was what I did up until this point. But then we started to look at the more distressed assets, right? We're talking about fire damage, water damage, bugs, things that are down to studs, things that are in, D class areas. Like we were like, okay, well, if we can now take this to the next level and do some more distressed assets, what is the return on those? And the return is much higher. Again, more risk, more return. So I would still do the slow reposition stuff, but we did, let's see, 32 unit to, we did a 45 unit, then we did a 76 unit, then we did a 90 unit, all the way up to about 158 units was our largest project, right? And to find these deals, they're not just in your regular primary market like a Nashville or a Dallas. You've got to go to secondary and tertiary markets, right? Like we bought a 45 unit for $18,000 a door in a town of 2,500 people, right? Dying market, normally nobody would touch that market or even go into that market, but we bought it for $18,000 a door. After doing the distressed rehab into it, we're into it for maybe 30 to 35. I mean, the rents on average are 600 to 700. So in a regular market, this would be worth 60 or 70 a door. I mean, we own it right now. It's cash flowing great. We're looking at selling it, but we're still going to make $20,000 a door on the sale of this project because we found the distressed asset. We went in and we bought it at such a great price, and we did it. I don't recommend this for the faint of heart. I've got some stories in my chest, boy, let me tell you. People have murdered people through the door and drugged them to the dumpster. Several occasions, we have had people drive their car through the front area of their apartment. We've had buildings burned down because of Molotov cocktails. If you don't know what a Molotov cocktail is, it's like gasoline.
It's not something you drink, guys. It's
Right,
not,
definitely not something you drink.
not a drinkable thing. Yeah, it's a war kind of cocktail.
It's a war cocktail. Yeah, you don't.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
on the other side of it, they don't want anybody to feel any. So yeah, we went out there and we had to span 5 different states. I mean, we were in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, just kind of spread all over the place. And it was really good because at the time, debt was cheap. Again, I tell everybody this, and I've got to explain it to them because not everybody understands, but debt can be your number one asset on any project. Like we locked in most all of these projects anywhere between a 3.5% and a 4.5% interest rate until 2027. So it's like, even though we made a lot of money because we rehabbed them and refinanced them, got a bunch of our capital out, and yeah, we're going to get appreciation and debt pay down and everything. The debt is the number one asset on those, because that's what slowed us down and pretty much stopped. I mean, I don't even have that company anymore that does the distressed asset. We've kind of dismantled it and spread it out to some of the investors, and we all took some to manage. But what stopped that momentum was a macroeconomic factor that nobody saw coming. The Fed hiked the interest rates 6 times in a very short amount of time. So debt became very expensive. So some of our capital got locked up into the deals because you can't refinance, right? Because you can't refinance at that larger rate. So, I mean, that's why the Fed did that, was to slow down the economy. Well, I haven't bought a project in like this Airbnb that I'm about to do right now is the first project that I bought in probably a year.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense, right? And it's like a lot of it goes into like understanding the season and the cycles of a market, right? Because this has happened in the past. We had a great guest at the boardroom event that he was talking. He's been in the industry for a lifetime. He's like, yeah, I remember rates like this usually, right? Like it's the 3s and the 4s are unheard of, right? I would love to kind of talk because you've done so much things, and I think that the part on the personal development, because what I always come back to is like everywhere you go, there you are, right? So if you keep kind of trying to escape who you are and not working through things, thinking that an outside thing is going to make a difference on an inside world, on an inside issue, the reality is like the image in the mirror, the person is always you, right? So I know from a brain conceptual side, you started understanding real estate and how it works. But walk us through some of those like change in the way you started thinking about you that helped you. Because dude, you've done some crazy projects, and like it takes a level of confidence to be like, hey, give me money to do this project. So talk us through, because I think there's a lot of people that do the same thing as you, right? Like start with their own money, and they're never able to graduate past that point because they're just that uncomfortable feeling of either asking people for money or to taking the responsibility of taking on people's money. So walk us through like how that mindset switch happened, because I know it wasn't by
Yeah,
chance, right? You
yeah,
worked that.
totally can. That's that's actually a big foundation of all of it, right? I kind of bring it back to this because I do kind of get asked this question a lot, and I've thought a lot about it on how to verbally explain the feelings and the self development, all of that, because a lot of it's kind of hard, and then kind of what mindset is. So I think how I figured it out is that it just it's a matter of fact of what success is to you, right? So success to me is freedom. So not only being financially free, but being physically free, emotionally free, mentally free, geographically free, and then financially free, right? Financial is just one component that unlocks certain things. So if you as a person are not ready for that level of success, you're not going to call it into your life and you're not going to be ready for it. There are no shortcuts. When you take the shortcuts, that's when you get into trouble and that's where you get burned. So I started to understand that if I did the work on myself, right? Go to the gym every day, meditation, journaling, and I will say, like, I have spent a lot of time working on myself and I have used certain tools to help me along on that process. Like I have used plant medicine. I have done a lot of internal work, shadow work and stuff like that to really heal the traumas that not only I grew up with, but there's also generational DNA trauma that you have that's passed down in your DNA. And it's stuff that we don't even know about. So if you start to understand who you are and what you want to accomplish, you can start to build a foundation, right? And then I always kind of bring it back to energies and frequencies, right? There's a low level frequency and a high level frequency. Like low level mind state is scarcity, right? Operating out of fear. A lot of people that don't do this self-development work and really try to create this mindset that they can accomplish certain things live in that low frequency state. And it's a hell of a place to live because you're always looking at things as obstacles and you never get out of like this cycle of low frequency. But when you do the things like working out, like meditation, journaling, putting the work into yourself, you actually are vibrating at a higher frequency, which is an abundance frequency, a frequency of love, right? And you actually start to get the confidence that you can do the things that you want to do. Confidence is a huge part of it, especially if you want to take your real estate portfolio from mom and pop, very small, and you want to grow it and you want to scale it. You have to have the confidence not only that you can do it, but if you want to start taking on other people's money, you are fiscally responsible for their money, right? The people that give me money or partner with me in joint venture, I care about their money more than I care about mine. Like I've written large checks to investors in my career because my brand and my relationship with them meant more to potentially having to do a capital call or having their money sit longer than I thought it was going to sit. Right. So, but to be able to do that, you have to have a good mindset. Right. And in business as an entrepreneur, it's funny. I was talking about this on another podcast here recently with a gentleman who was a fighter. So we got brought a lot of stuff back to like martial arts and stuff. Being an entrepreneur is like being in a fight. You're going to get punched in the face. So you have to be ready to get punched in the face. At any time, this little thing can ring. It can ring even right now while we're on this podcast. And that message coming through can be a doozy. Out of any of the businesses, I think I have like 22 businesses, including all of the real estate with different operators that, I get called all the time that I need to help them problem solve through these problems. If you're not ready for those calls, they can put you in such a negative mind state, in a low energy state, that it's hard to come out of it. And I wish I could say that every day that I wake up, I'm in a high energy frequency state and I'm ready to attack the world and everything is awesome. No, being an entrepreneur, it can be lonely sometimes. Like I joke around about it with like my coach. And when we talk about it, she giggles at me because I say, the reason I get up so early is because I need to wake up before my depression does. Because if I don't get up early in the morning and start my day and make my bed and do all my things, I sleep in and I'm depressed. I'm depressed to the point where I don't even want to get out of bed. What's the point? Right. And then tying it back into like people that understand like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Your basic human needs is the bottom of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're stuck on that bottom level, you don't even, you're working day to day and doing all of the things just to survive, right? You don't have time to sit back and sit still and feel all the feelings and understand purpose and passion and all of these things. So once you actually decide that you're going to make this jump to financial freedom and you want to build wealth and you're going to be the entrepreneur, you start getting some passive income in, and then you get to quit your job and you're doing this full time. Well, let me tell you, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. That's when the real work begins, because now you've got time to sit back and why are you getting up there? If you're financially free, you've got enough money coming in where you've got food in the fridge, roof over your head, all of the things. Well, what is your passion? What's your purpose to even get up in the morning? And when you start to battle things like that, that's when you have to go in self-actualization. You have to go inside and see what drives you. Like for me, doing all of the internal work was just another thing that I had to do. So I didn't have to sit still and feel all the feelings, right? Now that I'm financially free and I'm on my way to building wealth, it took me, I would say 15 years to understand that what my passion was and my purpose. I'm very passionate about creating the best version of myself, like expanding myself into the best human person I can be, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, all of it, right? Passionate about it. I love doing it. But my purpose is to help other people. I get such a high off of coaching and teaching other people how to become free in all areas of their life. It's a drug. I get high off of it. I have given up all of my other vices. I don't drink anymore. I don't watch porn. I mean, I've literally cut all of the vices out of my life that were negative affecting me. And I brought in a new vice, but it's helping me. Like when I get off this call, or when I get off a call with one of my coaching clients that I'm coaching in whatever aspect I'm coaching them in, I have to go outside and go stand in the ground because I am vibing at such a high frequency that I am so high. And I love that feeling, right? But again, as entrepreneurs, with the highs come the lows. It's all cyclical. It's not a cyclical circle like this, but it does go like this as you're an entrepreneur. So the more work you can do on yourself, the more successful you're going to be. You show me somebody's daily habits and what they do daily, I'll tell you how successful. When I walk in a room and I'm talking to people and I see their body language, I see how fit they are, I see how they hold themselves, I see their confidence in how they talk, I will automatically gravitate towards certain conversations, but I'll tell you how successful they're going to be, right? And I was the guy in my business development years that ended up drinking way too much and getting sloppy at networking events and stuff like that because I still had a ton of work to do on myself. I mean, I've been there, I've done that. There's nothing that I haven't done in the spectrum of everything, and I've pretty much done it all.
Yeah. No, and that's where you and I linked, right? Like you and I had this conversation after a plant medicine ceremony, and even in the way that we work out, we have this obsessive way of working out and this way of like almost having to pay our dues. And people would look at me when I work out, they're like, "Why do you work out so hard?" I'm like, "This is how I play. Like I don't know how else to play, right?" And so cultivating balance has been a big thing that you and I talk about in our private friendship. And it's a big question that I've been asking a lot lately. And I know life has changed for you, like with the baby, with Danielle and everything else. So walk us through, what does balance look like for you? Is there such a thing as balance, or is that permanently moving forward, keeping yourself in balance? What is that like for you? Also with the family growing now.
Yeah, that's a great question because for the longest time, I thought I was chasing balance. How do I balance everything? How do I balance my career? How do I balance wealth building? How do I balance my relationships? How do I balance all of the positive things that I'm addicted to, right? Like, how do I balance all of these things? And I would actually get depressed because I would set such high goals in everything in my life. And I'm the hardest person on myself. Like I'm so mentally hard on myself when I am not 100. Like anybody else can do something to me or whatever or let me down. I'm like, oh, you know what? It's okay. Stuff happens. You're human. Like let's just move forward. Me, no. I don't. There's no room for error. There's no room for mistakes. And my brain, I'm hard on myself. But what I've come to find out, and again, this is my truth today. The beautiful thing is we all speak our truth, and our truth is what we believe to be truth today. Tomorrow, some information may come in and I may change my mind 100%. But up until this point, I believe that there is no such thing as balance, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're trying to grow huge, large businesses. It's counterbalance, meaning that I can only set larger goals in a couple areas of my life at a time. And I'm going to put forth the effort at a time. So right now in my career, right, I did put so much effort into growing my portfolio so fast over those 18 months that I knew some of the other areas in my life were going to take a little bit of a backslide, right? Like our relationships, stuff like that. But I didn't neglect them. I just knew that I could only allocate so much energy to them. And being open and truthful with the people that are in those, like my partners and stuff like that, like saying, hey, we're going to go full in on this in 18 months. Some of this stuff is going to slide backwards a little bit, but we're going to try to keep it the best that we can. If you understand that you can only move the needle on one piece so far, if you're setting large goals, you can dial everything back and being okay with just, I hate to use the word of like just mediocre and just kind of like just going along in life, but like that to me is like purgatory. Like if I really do believe if you're not growing, you're dying. Like I love, like if I can't continue to educate myself on something and try just to go after stuff, like I slide backwards, right? So I think you got to understand that your life has seasons and you can only focus on certain parts of your life at a time 100%. So don't beat yourself up if you're not moving the dial on everything so hard and everything has to be in balance. It's more, I like to exchange the word balance for flow. Getting into a flow state to where you don't even recognize, like right now, I'm in a complete flow state. I don't know what time it is. I don't care what time it is. I don't know how long we've been on this podcast. We could have been here for 2 days already. Have no idea. I'm having a blast, right? I'm in flow state. This is where I'm meant to be and want to be right now. So can you set your life up to where you flow through your life doing all of the things that you love to do? Sure, there's always going to be some things that you have to do. But what excites you? What excites you to get out of the bed in the morning? What, like, can you get rid of the things that don't bring you joy and put the things in your life that do bring you joy? And that's one thing financial freedom can do for you. It can give you the space to figure stuff out, give you the space to find your purpose, find your passion, incorporate that into your life, spend more time on your relationships, spend more time with your kids. Like this, there's nothing that hurts my heart worse than seeing a floppy, middle-aged, really wealthy person who does not have a relationship with their kids or their wife or anything like that. That they have just devoted their lives to just building wealth and they are just not a good human being. That person's suffering. They're hurting. But they're justifying a lot of their life because of that. A lot of them, they're missing out on what life's really about. Relationships, people you love, being present, all of the things.
Dude, that was so good. I love that. And I've started to look at my life over the last, I don't know, 2 years, right? And to your point, I don't believe in work-life balance either. I look at it as integration, right? And to your point, there's seasons, right? Where, there's a season where you're pushing heavy, especially if you're new in the business, you're building up a portfolio, you're marching to financial freedom. That's good. I was in that season for a couple of years of like really pushing to get to that point. And then I leveled off. I spent a summer golfing and doing whatever. And then I get back into a build season and whatever. And so the way that I look at my life now is, how do I create my perfect weeks? So depending on what type of season I'm in, how do I want to architect my week so that, yeah, maybe if I'm in a build season, I only have certain pockets, but I am hyper intentional with my time. So like tonight, we'll wrap this up. I've got a coaching call and then I coach my son's lacrosse team on Thursday nights, right? Like I'm hyper intentional with, all right, here's what my Mondays are going to look like. Here's what my Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday, Sunday. And I create these blocks for myself. And I call it like my perfect week. So it's like if I'm in this season, here's ideally what I want my week to look like. And does it ever go perfect? Of course not. But I'm way more intentional now with how I structure it to keep in that flow. And I adjust it every quarter of like, all right, right now, Tuesdays and Thursdays are super heavy with meetings and podcasts and everything else. How does that feel? Does that work? Does it get me in flow? Does it throw me off? And then I just readjust every quarter to just find that perfect integration for me. And I know it'll never be perfect, but it gives me for something to focus on.
It'll never be perfect. Perfection does not exist. For the people that are listening that want to start to do this, that don't, kind of how I figured it out was first, I got onto my Google Calendar, right? And I blocked everything off for a perfect week, just like you said, right? And I would live that calendar till like that was the Bible. Like if my time was for working out or the sauna or for the family or whatever, I just played around with that. And then I would start to just move the blocks around depending on how the flow went. Now that I've done this for so long, if you look at my calendar now, it's actually pretty much empty because I understand kind of the flow of my life and how I like it. And I'm open to pivot. If you get a call with me and you are scheduled on my calendar, you have the most precious thing that I have right now, which is my time. Right. So I do schedule out the things that have to be scheduled, but like I've lived now and can be able to pivot on how I feel to have my life in flow. And like you said, it's not something that's perfect because it can never be perfect, but you have not only like exercised the muscle to understand what you do like, what you don't like, how you can make your life go the way you want it to go. But like you said, it's seasonality of it. Like maybe this season's for like family, or this season's for building this company, or this season's for growing this company. And that's okay.
That's okay component, I think, is such an important thing to understand. Because again, I think we're all like, when you speak of how hard we are on ourselves and the empathy that we have for others that we don't give ourselves, I think that has been the biggest path to growth for myself in terms of understanding, like, look, we want, and by we, I mean me, myself, and I, right? All my personalities, we want a lot, and that's okay. And there's still some things that are going to fall off the table, and it's okay. And if they're really important, I'll find a way to do it. And if I don't do them, that's also okay. Right. And really starting to feel and literally leaning into that, I think it's so important. And again, always going back, I love the thing you said about flow. Because when you flow, like you might miss something, but you're like, I'm in flow. Life is good. Right. But going back to the fact that like time is so valuable, we do want to be respectful of your time. We somehow have gone on for the whole show already. So before we get into our last question, when can people follow you, learn about you, see you do jujitsu and all kinds of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm in the season of my life of giving back and coaching and stuff like that, and building a brand online. And so if you want to follow me, they can go to the Real David Valley on Instagram and just follow me. I put a lot of energy there, I put a lot of free content there, but it's life content, right? It's not just real estate, it's every area of your life. Right. Because again, real estate to me is just one vehicle, or business is just one vehicle for the whole, for all of them. So you can follow me on Instagram.
Perfect. And Valley is Valley.
Yeah, the Real David Valley, Valley. Fake one, the real one.
Love
The
it,
real
man.
one. Yeah.
Love it. Well, the last question that we ask all of our guests is, we'll adjust it for you, but what is your number one secret to success? I won't even say real estate. What's your number one secret to success?
This is a great question because I have done a lot of contemplation on this. And I've narrowed it down to, I think, this one thing. My secret to success is how fast I take action when I make a decision. So I may take some time and understand the decision and do a little bit of research till I feel good enough about making this decision. But when my soul makes the decision, you can't catch me. I'm gone. I'm already making the phone calls, doing the things, doing that. So it's speed to action, right? In speed to action, there is no fear of failure because I'm already going, right? And that's the thing, is you can't be scared to fail. You're going to fail. There was a quote that I read, I forgot who said it, but it's like, you're going to lose your first $100 making your first 1,000. You're going to lose your first 1,000 on your way to your first 100,000. You're going to lose 100,000 on the way to your first million. You're going to lose money along the way. It's just part of the business. But if you don't take any action, you're never going to go anywhere. So I do pride myself that when I make a decision to do something, I am the fastest to take action.
Love it.
Love that. What an honor and a privilege. I always appreciate my time with you. You know that I love you dearly as a human. And I love sharing. Another thing that Mike and I are going to start doing is just sharing more of what I would call our inner circle, like our inner council as they come here and as we keep meeting people. Because I think at the end of the day, guys, like vacation rental, STRs, it's a vehicle. But what I want to give to our listeners in general is the understanding of like building the human around it is going to make your STR business so much better. And it's going to make your life, right? Because you're going to be able to build your life. So it is our intention to continue to bring more people from our life and just people that we meet that we think bring value. So I really appreciate you. I know how important your time is. And so I don't take it for granted that
No,
you're
I
here with us.
appreciate it. There is one thing that I did want to say to kind of leave your listeners with, because this is short-term rental, is that like the short-term rental market and business model and everything is such a great model. Like, you know, I did one short-term rental where I built it myself and tried to learn all of the things, and it was just way too much work for me, and it did not fit my flow at all, right? So I just decided that I didn't want to do that. But like, you got to be okay with like pivoting to different things, but then sometimes also combining things, meaning I am getting into the short-term rental business, but what we did is we bought a commercial building that's distressed. We're going to completely renovate it to 10 Airbnbs, and then we're going to rent those out as more of the higher end Airbnb. So that was a way to, because the regular model doesn't work anymore with interest rates. But if you do short-term rentals into a distressed asset building, the returns are better than the long-term rentals, right? So I love the short-term rental market. I think it's I don't think it's going anywhere, and I think it's a great place to be. And I think I have found a way to get in with my own unique skill set into the space.
Love that, man. Well, again, appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on here and sharing your journey, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, appreciate you guys, man. Don't make it another year or two before we get together and stuff, guys.
100%. 100%.
Mike has been like 6.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. Well, for listeners out there, appreciate you guys. Have an amazing week. We will talk to you soon. Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.